Well, that was a ton of fun. I had a great time watching this movie. Well, obviously, no, from the title and from what I'm wearing, but Violent Night with David Harbour playing a badass Santa Claus, and it's exactly what I wanted it to be. Like, when I first saw the trailer for this movie, I was so in. I was like, sold. I am ready to watch that film. That looks like it could be a ton of fun. But a part of me was still worried, because that's happened to me with a lot of movies. Like, a lot of the time I'll see a trailer for a film that looks really badass or looks really fun, like a good action movie or like a good slasher or something like that. And then I actually go see it in theaters, and it turns out the trailer built it up really well, but the actual movie is either boring or underwhelming or lame, doesn't go all the way with its premise, or just leaves me disappointed or annoyed. This movie did not do that. This movie put me in a really good mood. I enjoyed the hell out of it, and there are so many reasons I enjoyed the hell out of it. I'll talk no spoilers, and then I'll talk about spoilers later in the video. I'll give you a spoiler warning beforehand. So, I think one of the main things that makes this movie work so well is just the performance of David Harbour as Santa Claus. He does such a good job. Honestly, it's kind of amazing how well he does, like, because when you think of the premise, this is a movie where Santa kicks ass, yet at the same time, it feels like a genuine Santa. I know that sounds weird, given what happens in this film, and it's amazing how well, like, they juggle, like, three different kinds of aspects for Santa. Like, one, they have, like, he's a bitter Santa. He's a Santa who's, like, losing his motivation and, like, has gotten depressed and, is also kind of an alcoholic and everything. And, he's, I think they also insinuate he might be having some marriage troubles and everything, but this is a Santa who's lost his motivation. But at the same time, he's not a jerk. It's amazing. So the opening scene was very good, and that was where I was like, okay, I have high hopes. It opens with, like, Santa in a bar, and he's talking about how he's lost his motivation, how, everyone these days is just so greedy, like, he feels like no one appreciates the act of giving anymore or the real Christmas spirit, and he feels like the world doesn't need him anymore. Now, when you're doing a scene like that, you have to be careful, because, like, it can either come off really genuine, or, like, if you go too hard with it, your main character can come off as a kind of an asshole. Like, especially if he mistreats the people around him while he's doing this. That doesn't happen, though. Because even though he's sad and he's complaining about everything, he's not a jerk to anyone in the bar. Like, a mall Santa comes into the bar and talks to him, and he's nice to the guy. Like, he's not a jerk to the mall Santa. He's not a jerk to the bartender. He's perfectly courteous with both of them. He's just kind of pouring his heart out and expressing to them. But at the end of it, he still gets up, he thanks them, and to the bartender, he tosses, oh, by the way, here's your kid's gift. It's what they wanted. Save me a trip. I'm gonna go now. And that's, like, I believe that. I believe Santa would do that. And the way he talks just feels so genuine. It's like, it's funny how I'm talking about how genuine and nice Santa is in a movie where he slaughters people, but that's one of the reasons I think this movie is legitimately good. One way I can describe this movie well, this is Die Hard with Santa Claus. So now even more of a Christmas movie. Just a complete, pure Christmas Die Hard film. Basically, because, in Die Hard wouldn't have worked if you weren't rooting for the main character, if you didn't like the main character and, like, see him as a badass, but also as a real person. That's how this film, ironically, Santa Claus feels like a real person, and you can easily root for him in this film, and not just him. The little girl, you know this from the trailer, surely, the little girl is very sweet and likable, and also kind of a badass herself. I'll talk about that a little in spoilers. Also, the little girl's parents, even though they're having some trouble, they're both likable characters too. And that's about it for likable characters in this film, because the rest of the family is goddamn awful, and we get some really great comedy from all that, by the way. Wilda and I were laughing, the theater was laughing. There's a lot of really legitimately funny moments in this film. This film is funny, this film has heart, and this film is badass. The action is great. You get plenty of the action. There are fights that feel like grounded and real between Santa and some of the criminals, and then there are fights where Santa basically turns into freaking Jason Voorhees and slaughters people. So you get like the best of both worlds here. And there's even a part of this film which is basically R-rated Home Alone, I swear to God. And it's so much fun. Like, they have an R-rated Home Alone section. I feel like they kind of they had two different movie ideas and they might have merged them a little there. But honestly, I could watch a whole nother movie of just all that R-rated Home Alone stuff for an hour and a half. I think I would have loved that. But yeah, it was great. It was really great. And there's if you saw the trailer, this. Like, there are moments where Santa communicates with the little girl, and honestly, the way they talk to each other in this film is really, really cute and really it's difficult, sometimes, especially in this day and age, to have like an elderly man and a little girl like talking to each other in a way that's cute. Like, oh, that could feel uncomfortable if you don't do it right. But I personally thought it was perfectly genuine, and I thought it was a really nice dynamic the two of them had. I thought they worked off each other really well. Honestly, Santa's motivation for helping in this film is very well established, because he cares about the kids. Even though he's losing his motivation to do Christmas, like, they've established him as a character who did love it at some point and did want it to work out. And, like, there's a moment where Santa, like, just sees what's happening in the house and sees how scared the little girl is, and there's a look on his face, and you just get it. Once you see that, you get it. It's so well acted. This is good. That's a perfect, just like looking at something and getting it, and not having to have it spelled out for you to the audience. Like he didn't have to say anything. He didn't have to say out loud, "Oh no, I'm not gonna let." No, it's just the look on his face, and I love that. I love that about this film. How well it can get across like information like that, and they get it across quickly so that they can get to the fun action. They know what you're here to see, and they get to that. There is so much of that. The criminals all have funny code names. Like, there's code name Krampus checking in, Gingerbread checking in, Sugar Plum checking in, Peppermint, and the main villain. I'll just let you see in theaters. Like, I'll let you guess what the main villain is calling himself. It's funny. Like, people were laughing at that too. Yeah. So yeah, what else is something I need to cover? Oh yeah, so they play, without giving too much away, they play into the Norse roots of Santa Claus, but they also kind of do their own thing with it, and I won't spoil it for you, but it's kind of a new idea that isn't in any Santa Claus story that I know of, at least. But it's a way to also, it does kind of work, because like there are Santa legends that are based from the Norse and Celtic areas. Santa was, like as we know him today, is partially inspired by Odin, but it's also obviously a mix of Saint Nicholas and other legends. But yeah, but their explanation for it is a way to explain why Santa knows how to fight, and it's pretty cool. Like, there's great little Christmas touches here. There's a scene where somebody is cut, and in order to bandage it, they literally put wrapping paper and tie a ribbon around. I love little touches like that. And I love little acknowledgments of real details, like when Santa's going through the houses like early in the film to deliver all the toys. And again, he just delivers all the toys. He doesn't do anything mean. He doesn't vandalize the houses or anything because he's still a good Santa. But like, he eats the cookies, he drinks the milk, and obviously the milk isn't good. It's been sitting out for 4 hours. It's like, oh God, I got the milk all the time. So like, and that makes sense. That's a perfectly good detail. God, I could talk about this movie for so long. I just had such a good time watching it. I highly recommend it. This is a very easy recommendation. This film is well written. It's very well acted. I honestly am amazed to say that this film turns Santa into a fucking badass action hero while still paying respect to who Santa Claus is at heart, I believe. It's like a perfect mix of what you would stereotypically want Santa to be and what this movie wants to do with him. It's so good. This movie is funny, this movie is heartfelt, and this movie is badass as hell. I give it a 9 out of 10. Why not a 10 out of 10? Well, I just feel like there are some things that could have been expanded on a little more, or like a bit. I'll talk about it in spoilers, but a 9 out of 10 is a glowing recommendation. This is a wonderful film to see for Christmas. Obviously, don't take your kids to see it, though. It's R-rated for a reason. Let's not have another Deadpool incident here. But Santa definitely earns the red suit in this, if you know what I mean. Yeah, but this is a film I honestly want to buy when it releases, like for, like, I don't know, on DVD or something. Yes, I still own DVDs, don't judge me. But, yeah, easy recommendation. All right, I'm going to go into spoilers now. 3, 2, 1, spoilers. So, in this movie, Santa Claus used to be a Viking. And he used to be known as Nicholas the Red, because I guess, he killed people and brought the red out. And he used a hammer called Skull Crusher to kill. And so, of course, he gets a sledgehammer later in the film to smash people with, which is a cool moment. But what's funny is at the end of the film, his wife sends him his original Skull Crusher. And it's like, but what are you going to use that for now? The fight's over. It probably would have been what I thought would have been a little more cool would have been if, like, you could have said that his bag, instead of saying all the gifts are in the bag, you could have said his bag was like a portal to his reserves at the North Pole. And then what you could have had him do was you could have had this triumphant moment where he reaches into his bag and using that, reach into his reserves at the North Pole like magic, he pulls Skull Crusher out of it, and he's like, oh, been a long time, and then he starts wrecking ass with that. I think that would have been a cooler way to do it, but it still worked either way. Like that's not necessary. I just think that would have been a more badass and more fun thematic thing to do. Now, one thing, as I was saying before, one thing that I thought really needed more expanding was we never really got to find out how he went from being a Viking to being Santa Claus, because that's a huge jump. It's like, I was so invested in him, I was so invested in him that I really wanted to know more about his backstory. I was like, I really want to know how you stopped being a Viking and became a saint. I really want to know that. And also, like, there's a lot of points where he says, it's Christmas magic. I don't fully know how it works. I don't fully know how the bag works. And so I'm thinking to myself, how did you get the bag? I really want to know. Like, I buy you not fully knowing how Christmas magic works, but I always assumed, Santa created his bag or something like that. It's like, if you don't fully understand how the bag works, then that probably means you didn't create it. How'd you get it? I would have liked just a line or something where it's explained, like, how he became who he is, The movie's not super long. It's an hour and a half, I wouldn't have minded, adding 5 or 10 more minutes just giving me some backstory on Santa. Because I loved him. I wanted to know more about him. As a result of that, I would be totally down to see a sequel to this, although I'm not sure how exactly you would do it. I mean, I guess you could just have him encounter some other weird shit. I don't know, maybe have Mrs. Claus be involved. I mean, you could say she was a Viking too. The Home Alone shit, that's the little girl kicking a whole bunch of ass. Like, she actually goes R-rated Home Alone on the kidnappers, and that was so entertaining to see. The one thing that I found weird was when the little girl says to Santa over the radio, she says, "I'm gonna go home alone on him." He goes, "Well, I don't know what that is, but okay." It's like, you're Santa. You haven't seen Home Alone? I mean, I know you were a Viking, but it's 1100 years later. I assume you know how technology works now. You know what video games are. So do you not, like, watch movies at the North Pole? Do you not watch Christmas films? It's weird. Like, even if you haven't seen Home Alone, you should at least know what Home Alone is. Also, yeah, one kind of weird thing was him reaching into the bag and not knowing what he was going to pull out. It's like, well, then how do you get the right gift for the kid when you get to the kid's house, right? Like, if you're just pulling at random, there's got to be some way for you to summon the right thing. And when he reaches in the bag and goes, "Come on, no one asked for a bat this Christmas," is like, shouldn't you already know? Well, yeah, like, so those were some things I found a little weird. But one scene I did love that I was actually really hoping for was when the villain is monologuing to Santa, telling him his backstory, and I'm thinking, the way I like to picture Santa is that he already would know this guy's backstory because, he'd remember what this guy was like as a kid. And then he does! Later, yeah, right, like, as the bad guy finishes telling his story, he says, "I'm sorry, Jimmy, I'm sorry I didn't help you." And I'm like, yes, because he says the bad guy's first name, and the bad guy never told him his first name. It's like, how'd you know it, my first name? And then he also knows, like, all the henchmen's names and what they were like as kids and everything. It's like, perfect! That's what I want from Santa. Yes, that's excellent. So, yeah, God, man, I think I already got through everything. This has been one of my more rapid-fire discussions. Again, sorry about my voice. I'm still recovering from a sickness and my throat's not 100%. But, honestly, what's amazing? I went into this movie, like, when I went to the film, I wasn't feeling very good because, like I said, I'm recovering from a sickness. And I had already bought the tickets, but in the hour leading up, I honestly didn't want to go anymore because I was like, oh, I'm tired, I want to go to sleep. But I already bought the tickets, and I have been looking forward to seeing this film, and it was kind of Wilda, like wasn't always available to watch it, and I wanted to watch it with her. So I was like, screw it, I'll power through, I'll go see it. And 5 minutes into the film, I forgot I was feeling bad. I was just so into the film, and I left the film feeling great. That's props, movie, props. All right, yeah, so that's about, I think, everything I have to say about it. Thank you, Hollywood, for giving us another beloved Christmas classic. Merry Christmas to all of you. Hopefully I can get the God of War Ragnarok video done soon. I'm sorry it's so late, but these problems with my voice have made it really hard to record footage for it. So, but yeah, again, that's about all I have to say, and I don't know how to end videos.